Your table service is impeccable, but this is the entertainment industry, he said, tapping his manicured fingernails on the pristine white tablecloth. We need more personality. I watched him make air quotes around that last word as if my dignity was a punchline. My name is Elaine Winters, 34 years old, and after 8 years as a senior server at Lumiere, one of Boston's trendiest restaurants, I was being fired for not smiling enough. Greg Tanner, the new manager who'd arrived 3 months ago with his designer suits and customer experience strategies, slid a thin envelope across the table. My final paycheck. The guests want a show, Elaine. They're paying for the experience, not just the food. He gestured vaguely around the empty dining room, the morning sunlight catching on the crystal glasses I'd polished to perfection just hours earlier. We're bringing in people who understand that energy is part of the service. I didn't argue, didn't plead my case. Just nodded once, folded the envelope precisely, and placed it in my bag. I'll collect my things, I said quietly, my voice steady, despite the knot in my throat. As I stood to leave, Greg called after me. For what it's worth, your technical service is flawless. It's just not exciting. 8 years. Nearly a decade of memorizing hundreds of wine vintages, learning the precise cooking method of every dish, knowing which regulars needed their espresso served at exactly 165 degrees, which tables preferred their water without ice, which guests were celebrating anniversaries they thought no one remembered. All dismissed because I didn't chirp my specials like a game show host or laugh at the drunken jokes of businessmen on expense accounts. In the staff changing room, I removed my crisp white button-down and black apron, folding them carefully as my colleague Mia watched with wide eyes. Is it true? She whispered, glancing toward the door to make sure we were alone. Apparently, I lack the required personality for fine dining, I replied, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. Mia shook her head, her bleached blonde ponytail swinging. That's insane. You're the best server here. Chef Martin always requests you for his VIP tables. I almost smiled at that. Chef Martin, the talented but volatile head chef who'd been at Lumiere since before I arrived, had indeed often insisted I handle his most important guests. Not anymore, I said, closing my locker for the final time. As I left through the back door, I glanced through the kitchen window. The line cooks were prepping for lunch service, their movements precise and economical. Chef Martin was bent over, a plate, tweezering microgreens with the concentration of a surgeon. He didn't see me go. Nobody did. I didn't cry on the subway ride home. Didn't scream or curse when I entered my small apartment, just set my bag down carefully and made a cup of tea. Precision and control had been my professional hallmarks. They wouldn't abandon me now. My phone buzzed with messages from co-workers who'd heard the news. I turned it face down. There would be time for that later. For now, I just needed to think. I'd come to Lumiere after college, where I'd studied hospitality management. My professors had praised my attention to detail, my encyclopedic knowledge of food and wine, my ability to anticipate guests' needs before they voiced them. But Greg wasn't wrong about one thing. I wasn't bubbly. I didn't flirt or perform. I believed service should be like good editing, invisible but essential. My father had been a butler for a wealthy family in Connecticut. Growing up, I'd watched him work with quiet dignity, moving through rooms like a ghost, ensuring everything was perfect without drawing attention to himself. True service is about making others comfortable, not about making yourself noticed, he'd told me. I'd built my career on that principle. Now, at 34, I was starting over. The next morning, I updated my resume. 8 years at one of Boston's top restaurants should count for something. I made calls to former colleagues, sent emails to restaurants I respected. By afternoon, I had 3 interviews scheduled. The first was at Steel, a high-volume steakhouse, downtown. The manager, a woman with a harsh blowout and acrylic nails that clicked against her tablet as she scrolled through my resume, barely looked at me during our conversation. "Our servers need to create an experience," she said. Echoing Greg's words so precisely, I wondered if they'd attended the same management seminar. Personable, energetic, the kind of people who make guests feel special. I nodded, already knowing where this was heading. "You have impressive technical skills," she continued, "but we're really looking for someone with more presence." The second interview went much the same way. The third was at a trendy farm-to-table place where the manager, a man half my age, with an undercut and full-sleeve tattoos, suggested I'd be more comfortable somewhere more traditional. By Friday, a week after being fired, I was sitting in a coffee shop scrolling through job listings when my phone rang. An unknown number. "Is this Elaine Winters?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional. "Yes, speaking." "This is Sophie Chen, executive, assistant to Chef James Whitaker. He'd like to meet with you regarding a position at Terroir." I nearly dropped my phone. James Whitaker was a culinary legend. 3 Michelin stars, multiple James Beard Awards, a reputation for uncompromising standards, and innovative cuisine. Terroir was his newest venture, opened just 6 months ago to rave reviews and impossible reservations. "I believe there's been a mistake," I said carefully. "I haven't applied for a position at Terroir." "There's no mistake, Ms. Winters. Chef Whitaker specifically requested you. Are you available tomorrow morning at 10? I arrived at Terroir at 9:45 the next day." The restaurant was housed in a renovated warehouse in the Seaport district, all exposed brick and soaring ceilings. Sophie, an elegant woman in her 50s with a silver bob, greeted me at the door and led me through the dining room. The space was beautiful, understated but luxurious, with simple wooden tables, comfortable chairs, and large windows overlooking the harbor. No white tablecloths, no pretentious artwork, just thoughtful design that put the focus on the food and the company. Sophie guided me to a small office where Chef Whitaker was waiting. He stood as I entered, tall, with salt and pepper hair and intense blue eyes. He wasn't what I expected. In the few television appearances I'd seen, he'd seemed larger than life. In person, he had a quiet, contained energy. "Ms. Winters, thank you for coming." His handshake was firm but not aggressive. "Please sit." I perched on the edge of a chair, hands folded in my lap. "I'm a bit confused about why I'm here, Chef Whitaker." He smiled slightly. "Martin Reeves called me. Said Lumiere made the biggest mistake of their existence by letting you go." Chef Martin. I felt a rush of gratitude. He said, "You're the best server he's worked with in 20 years, that you understand what service really means." Whitaker leaned forward. "And that you were fired for not being entertaining enough." I felt my cheeks warm. "That's accurate." Whitaker's expression hardened. "Restaurants have lost their way. They've turned dining into theater, servers into performers. It's disrespectful to the food, to the guests, to the craft itself." He stood and walked to the window. "When I dine out, I don't want a new best friend. I want someone who knows their job, who can read a table, who makes everything seamless, someone who understands that their role is to elevate the experience, not to be the experience." He turned back to me. "Martin says that's you." I didn't know what to say. After a week of being told I wasn't enough, here was someone suggesting I was exactly what was needed. "Terroir isn't about entertainment," Whitaker continued. "It's about connection, to the food, to the people you're sharing it with. My servers are professionals, not performers. I need someone who understands that distinction." He sat back down. "I'm offering you a position as floor captain. You'd oversee service, train staff, ensure every detail is attended to. The salary is 20% more than you were making at Lumiere, plus benefits and a share of the service charge." I felt something shift inside me. Not just relief at a job offer, but recognition. The validation that comes from being seen for who you actually are. When can you start? He asked. Tomorrow, I said. The first few weeks at Terroir were intense. Whitaker's standards were even higher than I'd anticipated. Every detail mattered. The angle of the silverware, the temperature of the plates, the precise timing of each course. But unlike at Lumiere, what didn't matter was performing. What mattered was perfection. My team, 8 servers hand-selected by Whitaker himself, were like me, serious about their craft, knowledgeable, attentive without being intrusive. We moved through the dining room like a well-rehearsed ballet, anticipating needs, solving problems, before they arose, creating an atmosphere of calm competence. 3 months into my new position, I was polishing glassware before service when Sophie approached. "Table 7 tonight is a food critic," she said quietly. "Chef wants you to handle it personally." I nodded, making a mental note to review the reservation details. As Sophie turned to leave, she paused. "Greg Tanner made a reservation for tomorrow night. Party of 4, 8 p.m. I looked up, surprised. "Greg from Lumiere?" She nodded. "Chef thought you should know. He said you might want to take the night off." I considered it for a moment, then shook my head. "No, I'll be here." The next evening, I watched as the host led Greg and his party to their table, a foretop by the window with an excellent view of both the harbor and the open kitchen. Greg was mid-laughter at something one of his companions had said when he spotted me standing by the service station. His smile faltered for just a moment before he recovered, leaning in to whisper something to the woman beside him. I approached their table with professional composure. "Good evening, and welcome to Terroir," I said, my voice steady and confident. "My name is Elaine, and I'll be your captain this evening. May I start you with still or sparkling water?" Throughout the meal, I provided impeccable service, knowledgeable but not lecturing, attentive but not hovering, personable but not familiar. I watched Greg's expression shift from smugness to surprise to something approaching respect. When Chef Whitaker emerged from the kitchen to greet tables, as he did each night, he stopped at Greg's table last. "How was everything this evening?" he asked, his gaze taking in the empty plates and satisfied expressions. "Extraordinary," Greg replied. "One of the best meals I've had in Boston, and the service was impeccable." He glanced at me, standing a respectful distance away. Whitaker followed his gaze. "Ah, you've experienced Elaine's service. She's the heart of what we do here." He turned to me. "Elaine, would you mind checking on that 2015 Barolo for table 12? I think they might be ready for another bottle." As I moved away, I heard Whitaker continue, his voice casual but clear. "Elaine runs my floor better than anyone I've worked with in 30 years. I stole her from another restaurant. Their loss, my gain." Later that night, as we closed down the restaurant, Whitaker found me counting the evening's receipts in the office. "Was it difficult?" he asked. "Serving your former boss?" I considered the question. "No," I said finally. "It wasn't about him. It never was. It was about doing the job right." Whitaker nodded, satisfied with my answer. "That's why you're here." 6 months later, Terroir received its first Michelin star. A year after that, its second. The review specifically mentioned the quietly confident service that sets a new standard for dining in Boston. I still have that review framed in my office, alongside a note Chef Whitaker wrote me the day after Greg's visit. "Never change who you are. Proper service isn't about personality, it's about principle." Greg's restaurant, Lumiere, closed its doors 18 months after my departure. The Boston Globe's closing report cited inconsistent service among the reasons for its failure. I didn't feel satisfaction when I read that news. Just a quiet confirmation of something I'd always known. In the world of fine dining, as in life, substance matters more than spectacle. True quality speaks for itself, without needing to shout. Sometimes the most powerful presence is the one you barely notice, until it's gone.